Imagine a dragon. And I don't mean a cartoon dragon or, even a Game of Thrones dragon. I mean an ancient, intelligent serpent that has been successfully pulling the strings of humanity for thousands of years.
Right.
Now imagine a chain heavy enough to hold that dragon. But here's the kicker. The one holding the chain isn't an army. It isn't a fleet of starships.
It's a single angel.
A single angel. It's a striking image to start with.
It really sets the power dynamic right away, doesn't it?
And then just to ratchet up the intensity, imagine a throne so white, so terrifyingly pure, that the text says the earth and the sky literally run away from it.
Because there's nowhere for them to hide. That is the visual anchor of the text we're looking at today, is the definition of epic.
It really is. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling what is arguably the most dramatic and definitely the most debated chapter in end times literature.
You're looking at Revelation chapter 20.
Yeah. This is the crescendo. If you've been following the narrative of Revelation, we've had the seals, the trumpets, the bowls of wrath. It's been chaotic.
Utterly chaotic. But now we arrive at the aftermath. This is the chapter that deals with the millennium, the final judgment, and the ultimate disposal of evil.
And before we get lost in the weeds, I want to set the ground rules for everyone listening. We have a stack of sources here that break down what scholars call the expanded plain sense of these verses.
Right. The plain sense approach.
Which basically means we aren't going to be floating around in vague metaphors today, right? We're not saying, oh, the dragon is just a bad mood.
No, exactly. Or the chain represents our anxiety. We're taking the narrative step by step to understand the literal implications of the symbols used.
We're treating this as a timeline.
Yes. We're going from the binding of Satan through a 1,000-year reign, a very confusing final rebellion, and then finally the Great White Throne Judgment.
And I promise, by the end of this, we're going to clarify some terms that always trip people up. Specifically, the difference between the first resurrection and the second death.
Because they sound like titles of heavy metal albums, but the distinction is... well, it's everything. It's the ultimate distinction.
So let's get into the text. We start right at verse 1. An angel coming down from heaven. And what struck me immediately in the source material is his gear. He's not carrying a sword.
No. He's carrying a key and a chain.
A key and a chain.
Right. And the source material is very specific about what these represent. The key isn't just a piece of brass. It represents authority. It means he has the legal right to lock something away.
Okay, so authority and the chain.
The chain is restraint. It's about incapacitation.
But here's the thing that I find fascinating. It's just one angel. It's not a battalion. It's not Michael the archangel leading the whole host of heaven. It's just an angel.
That is a great observation. It really highlights the power dynamic here. We tend to think of good and evil as these equal opposite forces, like yin and yang, or two boxers of equal weight.
But this text says no.
Not at all. The angel simply lays hold of the dragon. It's an arrest, not a battle.
It's like the SWAT team doesn't even need to show up. Just the sheriff walks in and cuffs him.
Exactly. The struggle is non-existent.
Now, the prisoner, he's got a rap sheet. The text lists 4 specific titles in verse 2. Is that just for poetic effect, or is there a reason for the list?
It's about covering the full scope of his identity and his career, so to speak. The source breaks it down like this. First, he's the dragon.
The destroyer, the monster.
Exactly. Then second, he's the serpent of old.
Which links him all the way back to Eden, the original deceiver.
Right, that's the historical angle. Third, he's the devil, which is actually a legal term meaning accuser or slanderer. And finally, Satan, which simply means the adversary.
So you have the destroyer, the deceiver, the accuser, and the adversary, all wrapped up in one. The angel grabs him, and then what?
He is cast into the bottomless pit, or the abyss. The text says he is shut up and a seal is set on him.
And this isn't a weekend in jail?
No. The duration is specific, a literal 1,000 years, and the purpose is equally specific, so that he should deceive the nations no more.
I want to pause on that phrase. Deceive the nations no more. That implies that right now, or at least prior to this event, the nations are being deceived.
That is the clear implication, yes. The source suggests that the default state of world systems, politics, culture, you name it, is under some level of manipulation. It's the background noise of history.
So if you remove the source of that noise...
you get silence, clarity. For the first time since Eden, humanity is living in a truth environment. Imagine a world with no propaganda, no twisting of the truth, no supernatural pushing toward conflict.
It's hard to even imagine. It changes the entire atmosphere of the planet.
It does. It's a reign of Christ, completely void of satanic influence.
But then, and here's where the record scratches is a caveat, verse 3. After these things, he must be released for a little while.
That word must is fascinating, isn't it?
It's baffling. Why, if you have the bad guy locked up, you throw away the key. You pour concrete down the hole. You don't schedule a parole hearing.
It implies a divine necessity. It's not an accident. It's part of the plan. But we'll put a pin in that for a moment because while the dragon is in the pit, things are happening on the surface.
Right, scene change. Verse 4, we see thrones and people sitting on them. Who are these people?
This is where we get into the first resurrection. The text specifically identifies the souls of those who had been beheaded for their witness to Jesus.
Beheaded. That's specific and graphic.
It is, and the source highlights the criteria. These are the people who rejected the beast, refused the mark we read about in previous chapters, and died for their testimony. And now, the script is flipped.
They aren't victims anymore.
They're rulers.
The text says, they lived and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years.
And lived here refers to resurrection, physical resurrection. They are back in bodies, on earth, running things.
But the source makes a very sharp contrast here that I think is crucial. Verse 5 says, but the rest of the dead did not live again until the 1,000 years were finished.
Yes, this is a major point of confusion for people.
Okay, so let me map this out to make sure I've got it. The good guys, specifically these martyrs and believers, they come back to life before the 1,000 years start.
Correct. That is the first resurrection. The source explains that this resurrection is only for the righteous. They are raised to reign.
And the rest of the dead,
the wicked, or generally anyone who isn't part of that redeemed group, they stay in their graves. They do not live again until the 1,000 years are over.
That is a massive gap, a 1,000-year interval between the resurrection of the just and the resurrection of the unjust.
Exactly. It destroys the idea of a single judgment day where everyone pops out of the grave at the same split second. This is a phased operation.
And the status of those in the first resurrection sounds pretty good.
It's incredible. Verse 6 calls them blessed and holy. It says they become priests of God and they reign. But the most important part looking forward is that the second death has no power over them.
We're going to define second death in a few minutes, but basically they are safe. They've made it.
Bulletproof, immune to judgment, they have graduated.
So we have 1,000 years. Satan is in the pit. The saints are reigning on earth. It sounds like paradise. It sounds like the end of the story.
You would think so. Roll credits, everyone goes home happy. It feels like the utopia humanity has always wanted.
But remember that pin we put in earlier?
The parole hearing.
Verse 7. Now when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison.
Here we go.
I still come back to.
Why?
Why ruin a good thing?
The source explains this as a final divine test of humanity. You have to remember, during this 1,000 years, there are generations of people born into this peaceful kingdom. They didn't see the beast. They didn't see the old world.
Okay, so they're born into a world where Jesus is king, physically present.
Right. They've lived in a perfect environment under a perfect king. No war, no poverty, no satanic deception. But here is the deep philosophical question the text is posing. Does a perfect environment equal a perfect heart?
Do they obey because they love the king or just because he's the only option in town?
Precisely. Is it submission or just compliance? And the answer, tragically, appears to be that for many, it's just compliance. Because as soon as Satan is released, verse 8 says he goes out to deceive the nations.
Immediately, he doesn't need a ramp-up period.
Immediately. It seems the seeds of rebellion were sitting dormant in the human heart, just waiting for water. He goes to Gog and Magog to gather them to battle.
Now, Gog and Magog, I've heard those names thrown around. Is the source saying this is like Russia or some specific country?
In this specific context of Revelation 20, the source defines them not as specific countries on a modern map, but as symbolic of a worldwide archetypal rebellion.
It represents the nations from the four corners of the earth.
Right, uniting against God.
And it's not a small group of malcontents. The text describes the number of them as the sand of the sea. That is terrifying. After 1,000 years of peace, that many people are ready to burn it all down.
It really speaks to the depth of the deception and perhaps the stubbornness of the human heart. When offered a chance to rebel against God's authority, a vast multitude takes it.
So they gather. They surround the camp of the saints and the beloved city, which the source identifies as Jerusalem.
Right.
They've got the city surrounded. It looks like the final stand.
And then comes the biggest anticlimax in military history.
Oh, on.
Verse 9. There is no siege, there is no fighting, no swords clash. The saints don't even lift a finger.
So what happens?
Fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them.
That's it.
That's it. It's immediate divine judgment. It's not a war between equals. It's a swatting of a fly. The rebellion is vaporized instantly.
Wow. It just emphasizes how futile the whole thing was.
Exactly.
So much for the uprising. But what about the ringleader? What happens to the devil? He's been caught before. He's been bound before. Does he get another time out?
No. This is verse 10, and this is the final verdict. The devil is cast into the lake of fire and brimstone.
Is he alone there?
No. The text notes that the beast and the false prophet are already there. And remember, they were thrown in 1,000 years prior, back in chapter 19.
Oh, wow. I missed that implication.
Yeah.
So if they were thrown in 1,000 years ago and they are still there?
Exactly. They didn't burn up. They didn't cease to exist. This is a heavy point the source material stresses. It says they will be tormented day and night forever and ever.
What does the original text say about that time frame? Because forever is a word we throw around loosely, you know.
The Greek reference used here is eis aishis aishno. It literally translates to unto the ages of the ages. It indicates absolute eternal duration. It's the strongest expression for eternity possible in the language.
So, not temporary.
Not temporary, not annihilation. It is ongoing.
That is heavy. It definitely removes the idea that the devil rules hell, right? He's not the warden, he's the prisoner.
He is the chief victim of the place prepared for him.
Okay, so the devil is dealt with, the rebellion is crushed. Now, the scene shifts again, and this is the image that I think sticks people the most. Verse 11.
The Great White Throne.
Describe it for us based on the text.
It's stark. The source emphasizes the whiteness representing purity, absolute righteousness, unassailable justice. And the judge sitting on it is identified by the source as Christ himself.
And what's fascinating is the reaction of the cosmos.
Yes. The verse says, "From whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them."
That sounds like the dissolving of reality.
It is the uncreation of the old universe. It dissolves before his presence. There is literally nowhere to hide because the physical places to hide earth and sky are gone.
It's just the judge and the accused in a void. And the accused are.
Verse 12. I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God. This is that second resurrection we mentioned. The sea gives up its dead. Death and Hades deliver up their dead. The source is clear. No one escapes.
If you were in the first resurrection, you're standing here.
Here. And then the books are open.
Plural. Books. And then another book. Singular.
Right. This is a crucial courtroom detail. The books, plural, contain the record of deeds, thoughts, words, actions. Everything is recorded. The text says they are judged according to their works.
Now, hold on. I thought the whole point of this theology was that salvation wasn't by works, that you can't earn your way in.
You can't. And the source clarifies this nuance beautifully. The judgment of works here isn't to see if they were good enough to get into heaven. It determines the degree of punishment.
Ah, so the books of works are the evidence for the prosecution. Here is what you did.
Exactly. It vindicates the justice of God. No one can say, I didn't do that. It's all there. But the verdict, the actual verdict, depends on the other book.
The book of life.
Yes. The book of life contains the names of the redeemed. So the books of works show why they are guilty. The book of life shows if they are pardoned.
And before we get to that final verdict, something strange happens in verse 14. Death and Hades were cast into the lake of fire. How do you throw death into a fire?
It's a profound moment. It's the death of death. The source explains that Hades, which is the intermediate place of the dead, like a waiting room, is no longer needed. And death itself is destroyed. There is no more dying in eternity.
So death is treated as an enemy that is finally removed.
Correct. And the source explicitly defines the lake of fire here.
Right.
This is the second death.
So let's circle back to that. The first death is physical. Your heart stops, your body dies, the separation of soul from body.
Right.
And the second death is the separation of the soul from God, eternally.
That's the definition the source gives.
And here's the final criteria. Verse 15. Anyone not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire.
That's the bottom line. It doesn't say anyone who did too many bad things. It doesn't say anyone who didn't give enough to charity. It says anyone not found in the book.
It's binary.
Completely binary. The source describes this as irreversible. There are no appeals, no second chances. The books are closed.
It's sobering. I mean, we started with a dragon in chains, which feels like a fantasy novel. But we end with this very stark, very legal scene of judgment.
It really strips away the fantasy elements and leaves you with a very raw reality. There is no place to hide, no way to argue, just the record.
So let's recap this journey. We went from the binding of the dragon to the pit.
Then the peaceful 1,000-year reign of the saints, the first resurrection,
And the release of Satan, the deception of the nations, and that final brief war.
and finally the ultimate removal of evil, the death of death, and the great white throne judgment.
What stands out to me is that contrast we talked about at the beginning, the two resurrections.
That is the key takeaway the source drives home. You have the first resurrection characterized by blessed and holy, reigning life, and you have the second death characterized by the lake of fire, eternal separation. The text presents no middle ground.
Here is the thing that I'm going to be thinking about later, though.
Yeah.
And I want to throw this out to you and to the listener. It's that final test.
The release of Satan.
Yeah. The text insists that he must be released. It suggests something really uncomfortable about human nature. We tend to think, if I just had a better environment, if I had a perfect government, if I didn't have bad influences, I'd be perfect.
That is the modern assumption, isn't it? That we are products of our environment. If we fix society, we fix the man.
But this text argues against that. Hard. It shows people living in a literal paradise under the direct rule of God for 1,000 years. The economics are perfect, the justice system is perfect, and the moment the deceiver shows up,
They go with him. It suggests that the problem isn't just external, it's internal. The source text argues that the human heart's capacity for choice and rebellion remains a central theme until the very end.
you can fix the world, but unless the heart is changed, unless that name is in the book of life, the rebellion is still just waiting to happen.
That is a lot to mull over. The difference between a perfect world and a perfected heart.
We hope this deep dive helped clarify the timeline and the terms of Revelation 20 for you. It's a heavy chapter, but, well, understanding the sequence makes it a lot less confusing.
And it certainly makes you think about which book you want your name in.
The books or the book? That's the question. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.